Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is I'm trying to find a happy medium between how moody and changeable I am with reading, the fact that I read multiple books at one time, and doing TBR, something that seems to be a staple of the booktube community. So I'm going to go through my currently reading, which is probably going to be things that I still pick up throughout the month, and some of the things that I'm thinking of adding on to reading also that I have not already been reading. And so first, I am about halfway through Bellman in Black. This is a book that I got in one of the used books monthly box, and I was just completely spellbounded by the cover. I thought that the synopsis was interesting, and so caught up in the moment of boyhood competition, William Bellman recklessly aims his slingshot at a rook. It was as if he never killed the thing at all because he didn't remember, but rooks don't forget. Years later, when a stranger mysteriously enters William's life, his fortunes begin to turn. And together they found a decidedly macabre business, and Bellman in Black was born. So I just kind of skipped through the synopsis. So the first half of this book, it reads like a fairy tale. It's really beautifully written. We start at William's childhood, and we're going through his incredible luck as an adult, but he is incredibly smart, incredibly handsome and charismatic, and he's very hardworking. And just through that, he moves up the ranks in the mill, gains trust from his family members and the people that work there, gets a wife, has children, and then people start dying around him, and this mysterious black man in black shows up at the funerals every time. And when the tragedies start to really hone in on William and his immediate family, then in his desperation, he then reaches out to the man in black. And so I was loving it, and I was loving the mystery of who the man in black was and what their macabre business is. And at this point, I've kind of lost a little interest because the macabre business is just opening up a sort of mortuary kind of thing. Someone made a passing statement that death is always in business or something like that. And so now I'm like, oh, you just got a funeral business? And I'm still wanting to stick with it just because so far, there's been some really beautiful language. So let me just tell you one of the quotes that I liked. The world, the universe, God too, if there is one, are raged against mankind. From this newly unveiled vantage point, he saw that his old good fortune was a cruel joke. Encourage the man to think he is lucky, all the better to bring him down afterwards. He realized his essential smallness, the vanity of his efforts to control his fate. He, William Bellman, master of the mill, was nothing. All these years he had believed in his own power, not once recognizing the presence of the vast rival who could crush him in a day if it chose to. His happiness, his success, which he had taken to be solid things hewn out of his own effort and talent, had proved as fragile as a dandelion clock. All it took was for the unsuspected competitor to release its breath, and the seed had disappeared. And that completely sums up what he's going through right now. Really fast, I just want to, she just weaves, what's her name? Danielle Setterfield weaves words really beautifully. One of the things she said was, at the graveyard, fingers of lucid September sun pointed at the coffin and the pit. And I just thought fingers of lucid September sun was just a really cool image. One other thing that I really appreciated from this book, and it is the even in pop culture, even in our day and age, and all of our imagery, all of our mythos, everything is, black is bad, white is good. But this description of the rook that was killed, well, William kills the rook with a slingshot and a rock, and the little boys that are with him go and they pick up the bird and play around with it. And they realized that within the blackness, what they thought was just like a flat black bird had this beautiful array of colors. And I just thought that was a beautiful way of describing black. And if I were to ever start playing around with writing or something like that, I would like to come back to this idea of black, because I remember, you know, some of my family members who may be super, super dark being called blue black or purple black. And I like that variety in description. So a ray of light breaking through the foliage fell upon the dead creature, and the black was suddenly not black. Inky shades of blue, purple, and green were released. This was color that did not behave as color should. It shifted and shimmered, alive with vividness that played tricks on the eye and the mind. Every boy wondered for a moment whether perhaps the bird was not dead after all, but it was, of course. So just because of the beautiful language, I think I will continue on with this book. The next book I'm reading is also another book from Used Books Monthly Box, one of the Used Books Monthly boxes that I had in the past. And it kind of fulfills one of the things that I wanted to do this year, which is reading a little bit more outside of my comfort zone. And Vampires in the Lemon Grove, this happens every time, I'll just put it up. Vampires in the Lemon Grove by Karen Russell is a book of short stories, and it's very bizarre. I have gotten through the first story where there were vampires who couldn't really slake their thirst with blood, and they tried all these other things, and then they came to a lemon grove and lived there. And I'm always, maybe this hampers me, because I'm always trying to figure out what the author's trying to say, what's the theme, and maybe I should just let a story wash over me. There was the second story that I read was about these Japanese women who were tricked into becoming silk makers, but not only were they tricked into becoming silk makers by this man who goes around and tells the family members, you know, let them come for a contracted amount of time to you know, work in my silk thing, and we'll, you know, it was during a depression in Japan, but it was a trick, and these girls were taken in, and it's like body horror. They're turned into silk makers physically themselves, and through like kind of this one was a little more straightforward in the sense that it was a rebellion against the overlords. You know, I have to say it was interesting. You know, I might be continuing on with this. I mean, this one I just kind of pick up and read every once in a while. I'm hoping that one of the stories just blow me out of the water and it's worth reading through the stories. So this is a possible, you know, I possibly will pick up this and read another story out of it during June. Now, some books that I had ordered from Thrift Books took a long time to get here, and I had forgotten I had ordered them. So the first one is The Monstromologist by Rick Yancey. There are more monsters among us, and they must be found. Monsters are real. Will Henry is the orphan apprentice of a doctor with an unusual specialty, monstromology, the study of monsters. When a midnight visitor brings them the body of a young girl entwined with the corpse of an anthropophagus, it is the start of the most mysterious case of Will Henry's life. Anthropophagi are headless monsters whose razor-sharp teeth are in its stomachs, and they are supposed to be extinct in this part of the world. Now Will and the monstromologist are in a race against time to put a stop to the plague of monsters before they kill them. This says, and one of the things that made me go, okay, this is something I'm going to pick up right now, was the book list starred review says, weaves a world that processes Lovecraftian logic and hints in its own deeply satisfying mythos. And this is something that I'm learning about myself, that I really love Lovecraftian stories. I don't love Lovecraft himself. It's easier to separate the author from the art when it comes to him because he's been dead for so long, and it's satisfying that he died penniless and frustrated. But I love what current writers are doing with his stories and with his weird type of stuff. And I've read so many books in the last probably I don't know, since like, I think whenever 14 came out, so middle, I don't know, 2014 or something like that. I've loved that kind of stuff. I loved Matt Ruff's Lovecraft Country. Ballad of Black Tom was Lovecraftian, and there's like weird illustrations in here. I just love anything spooky. I'm thinking at this time right now I'm in a real spooky mood, and it's so funny because it's the summer, so it's like, shouldn't I be into more summery beach reads? But it's like I'm pushing up on I'm really enjoying, you know, horror and murder thrillers. Even my palate cleanser kind of just not really paying attention to audiobooks are murder mysteries and things. Now the next book I received is The Family Plot, and it's different than the family plot that's being talked about right now in you know, current new releases booktube community. And I don't know if I made a mistake thinking that this was that book, or if I just was on Thrift Books. Like I said, it took a long time for these to get here, so I don't know if I just was on Thrift Reads, you know, liked the sound of the book and then bought it. So let me go ahead and read the synopsis just for myself too. I haven't reread the synopsis since getting the book in the mail. Music City Salvage is a family operation owned and operated by Chuck Dutton, master stripper of doomed historical properties and expert seller of all things old and crusty. But business is lean and times are tight, so he is thrilled when the aged and esteemed Augusta Withrow appears in his office bearing an offer he really ought to refuse. She has a massive family estate to unload, lock, stock, and barrel. For a check and a handshake, it's all his. It's a big check, it's a firm handshake, and it's enough of a gold mine that he assigns his daughter Dahlia to personally oversee the project. Dahlia preps a couple of trucks, takes a small crew, and they caravan down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where the ancient Withrow house is waiting. And so is a barn, a carriage house, and a small overgrown cemetery that Augusta Withrow left out of the paperwork. Augusta Withrow left out a lot of things. The property is in unusually great shape for a condemned building. It's empty, but it isn't abandoned. Something in the Withrow mansion, I don't know why I'm saying Withrow. Something in the Withrow mansion is angry and lost. This is the last chance to raise hell before the house is gone forever, and there is still plenty of room in the strange little family plot. So that sounded really cool. Of course, because I'm loving all things monster and spooky, even though we're at the beginning of summer. Now, one of the many, I'm still reading 400 Souls, slowly working my way through that. And one of the other books that I've been thinking about getting into, this book would be a book on feminism, so I'm not sure if I'm going to pick this up, but I'm thinking about it. But the word love is most often defined as a noun, yet we would all love better if we used it as a verb, writes Bell Hook as she comes out fighting and on fire in All About Love. Here, at her most provocative and intensely personal, the renowned scholar, cultural critic, and feminist skewers our view of love as romantic. In its place, she offers a proactive new ethic for a people and a society bereft with lovelessness. As Bell Hooks used her incisive mind and razor-sharp pen to explore the question, what is love? Her answer strikes at both the mind and the heart. In 13 concise chapters, Hooks examines her own search for emotional connection and society's failure to provide a model for learning to love. Raising the cultural paradigm that ideal love is infused with sex and desire, she provides a new path to love that is sacred, redemptive, and healing for individuals and the nation. So those are the physical books that I am reading or going to try to get to in June. Now for the audiobooks. Hey, editing me here. I wanted to add in another book that I was reading, specifically because it is an example of a book that I think I talked about in my wrap-up, where it's a pushed book, but I'm not enjoying it. It's like a book that keeps being pushed on BookTube. It's Finlay Donovan is Killing It, a mystery. And it's about this lady this divorced mom who kind of gets mistakenly involved in being a hit person. And so I've just heard nothing but ravings about it. On chapter 7, it says on the audiobook, I'm just not enjoying it, and I really need to find some way to get recommendations where I'm, I don't know. This isn't, I didn't pay for it in a sense. I got it from Scribd, and I already paid I paid $10 a month for Scribd, and I have, they say unlimited, but it's unlimited with the asterisk for audiobooks through them. And then they have unlimited books. I do read a lot of the kids' books through Scribd. It's just another one of those popular books that's a disappointment. And while I didn't pay like a full $14 on audio, when you use a whole credit, that represents $14. Or I didn't buy the book from the bookstore at $20, hardback. It still takes time, and I already kind of feel hyped up sometimes where I'm like, God, there's so much I want to read, and this book is taking up my time, and it's annoying to have a book take your time up when you're already like, oh, I got this huge TBR, and my currently reading is at 10 books, and so it's like the time factor, I guess, is what it's costing me. So that's another reason. I saw another video recently about DNFing, and people still are like not DNFing books, and I'm just like, time is money. Time is worth things. Time is worth something. We don't even have to say time is money in some weird capitalistic way, but the time that I spend on a book that I don't like is time that I don't get to spend on thousands of books out there that that could possibly change my life, or that just could be delightful books that lift the doldrums for me in that one day. So I am going to finish A Blade So Black. I'm currently listening to it. It's a little more young adult than what I thought, and I wasn't in the mood for action adventure young adult. The magic wasn't spooky enough. It didn't have a spooky enough kind of underpinning to keep me involved. Like I said, the magic really lends itself to action adventure, and that's just not what I was in the mood for right now. But I will probably be cycling through moods and listening to that as my mood allows. The next book that I've been kind of moodily listening to is A Maryland Witch in Arthur King's Court by Catherine Messick. It's a cozy witch mystery, and whenever I get the inkling to do it, or probably at night a lot of times, I am an insomniac, and so I kind of cycle through books at night, and that's one of the ones that I will listen to just in the middle of the night when I wake up and I don't want to listen to something heavy or something that I really need to pay attention to. That's what the purpose of A Maryland Witch in Arthur King's Court. The other audiobook that I'm listening to is a romantic suspense that I think I'll be finished with probably today. It's Say You're Sorry by Melinda Lee. After the devastating loss of her husband in Iraq, Morgan Dane returns to Scarlet Falls, seeking the comfort of her hometown. Now, surrounded by family, she's finally found peace and a promising career opportunity until her babysitter is killed and her neighbor asks her to defend his son Nick, who stands accused of murder. Tessa was the ultimate girl next door, and the community is outraged by her death. But Morgan has known Nick for years and can't believe he's guilty, despite the damning evidence stacked against him. She asks her friend Lance Kruger, an ex-cop turned private eye, for help. Taking on the town, the police, and the zealous DA, Morgan and Lance plunge into an investigation, determined to find the real killer. But as they uncover secrets that rock the community, they become targets for a madman hiding in plain sight. And so obviously, of course, Lance and Morgan are finding themselves falling for each other, because this is a romantic suspense. The other thing that I'm listening to is Stamped from the Beginning, a definitive history of racist ideas in America. I actually am reading through this with my husband to facilitate a conversation. He is a white man, and you know, obviously we've been married going on 14 years coming up in July, so he is obviously not a racist person, but he doesn't quite connect the ideas of white supremacy that are inherent in all of us, even black people. I mean, a lot of the issues of respectability politics, thinking that, oh, if we look a certain way, if we dress a certain way, then we won't be disrespected, we'll gain the respect of white people. That's rooted in white supremacy. The fact that we value lighter skinned women with looser hair, that's white supremacy that is embedded in black communities. And so those are things that, you know, I've had to work with, I've had to work against and learn, and all of those kinds of things. And so my husband is learning more so, not just to be, it's not just enough, especially in this day and age, to be not racist, or to say, oh, you know, I'm married to a black woman, I have black children, and I am, you know, basically, you know, liberal, more, you know, I have been asking for and pushing for him to be more anti-racist and to be more of an accomplice rather than just an ally. And to learn to do that, he has to go back to like the beginning. And I thought Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi would be a great book to start, because it was the book that he wrote before the more famous How to Be an Anti-Racist. And so he is listening to this like on his way to work, and he's listening to it again on his way home, and then we're talking to it chapter by chapter. So that's more of a project between he and I. And that's it right now. I'm reading books to my kids. My son is reading, I'm reading to him another Galaxy Zack book. That's what he's going through right now. And I'm reading Hollowpox, which is book 3 in the Nevermore series. So I'm reading those books to them at night. And there will probably be other books that come in as my mood changes, or as I finish these books faster, and some of these books I might not even get to. But this is a I don't know what I'm going to call this. I want to find a name for the type of TBR that I'm having, like I'm currently reading and I might get to in June. Thanks for sticking with me so long. If you got to the end of this, let me know what you're reading in June. Let me know if any of these books sound interesting to you. Be easy on yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.